Hey folks, it's Chris here, and what we're going to do today is we're going to make a picture using Magic of Voxel. Now Magic of Voxel is a free program. It's available for Windows and for Mac. I'll put a link to it down in the description. Very simple, very small program. You just sort of unzip it and run it. I will say that on the Mac version I did briefly encounter a problem when I tried to run it. I got a black window, but the fix for that, weirdly enough, was actually to move the application file out of that folder and then back into it, which for whatever reason seems to have fixed it. Now, Magical Voxel can be thought of kind of like sort of, Photoshop meets Minecraft. It's a way for building pictures out of cubes. And as you'll see, there's some people make characters. This is one of the characters that comes with it. And you can also make it environments, so like this castle. And these are models, you can drop them into Unity, so you can use them for game development. And that's something that I've been tinkering with, experimenting with just a little bit. But that's not our focus today. Look here, I made a Gamketo book. Our focus today is just going to be just using this tool just to kind of get familiar with it. It's kind of a nice alternative to, if you've ever tried using Blender to make 3D models, it can be very intensive, both in terms of time and the complexity of it. Magical Voxel's delightfully straightforward. And so we're just going to start with a new cube. I just clicked new down here. This might actually be what you first see. Now, a couple things to know about Magical Voxel are, for one thing, up here, this 40-40-40, that's the size of our overall environment. And so what that means is that 40 in each direction of that point is currently the size of our space, and we can change that after the fact. So we'll show how to do that as we proceed. You'll also notice when I clicked and dragged, it cut a big swath out of it. Over here are our tools to attach, erase, or paint. And because we started with a filled space, right now erasing is what you're seeing. If I go to attach, you'll see I can put on a chunk by clicking and dragging. By the way, to rotate my camera, drag my right mouse button. And then to do these operations over here, I'm clicking and dragging with my left mouse button. And you can really see again, it's very simple to kind of get the hang of. Another really handy button when you're new to it is this delete button. That will dump out the whole space and start you fresh. And I will say 40-by-40-by-40 can be actually quite a bit of room, right? And so maybe for something simpler, let's start with 20-20-20. Type this in, press enter. We have a smaller space. Now what might we make? Maybe let's make a real quick coffee mug. Kind of like my Gamketo coffee mug. And it's going to be simple enough to do in terms of, we're not going to try to make it round since we don't really have round stuff here. First thing I'm going to do is lay down the base of it. I'm going to go to attach. Ooh, these are also different kind of tools. B is the main we're going to focus on. That one's good for whole blocks. So you'll see a control there, just click and drag to make a layer. Then I'll click and drag to make another layer. And in this way I can make myself a big old space. Now one problem we're going to quickly run into is I'm not going to have room for a handle. But that's no big deal. We're on a computer, so we can fix it and rethink things as we go. Just want to get a start. Notice I'll click here, I'll drag up to there, and so now we have a container. Oh, see how this side is too thick? Not TOO, but TWO. Well, okay, we can carve that back by using the erase tool. I'll click and drag on the corner, all the way up to this corner, and now it's more even. But again, so we don't have room for the handle. And this is where, like I said, we can go up here, we can modify these. So instead of being 20-by-20, let's try experimenting with 30. Now you'll also notice that expanded it out in both directions, but we only want the handle to come out from one side. This is where we can use this tool to drag the whole scene. And if we drag it too far, it'll actually just wrap around. So you can't accidentally lose things. But this is helpful to shift a whole region. Now we want to add that handle to it. So I'm going to go back to attach, and let's see, how might we want to think about this handle? About how big is that? Looks like it goes pretty close to the top and pretty close to the bottom. So maybe about, I don't know, about yay. Let's see, how does that kind of look as a profile? I guess it should be skinnier than that. And so I'm going to go back to erase, click and drag that away. And now also I'm going to just briefly here use the paint tool actually as a measuring device, just to get a sense. I can also, if you look down in the corner, we'll see where we see X, Y, and Z measures. So we could also use that to mathematically determine a center point. But here I just want to kind of think about how many units this is. And this will actually be easier to count with a line than a box. So here, let me undo that, which I can Control Z just like normally, or up here's undo and redo. And now here's where these different tools come in place, where I'm going to use L for line. And now when I click and drag, it'll paint a line rather than a box region. And so in that way, if I make a 45-degree angle, you see I'm just going to kind of visually spot. Ah, okay, so I can see there both at even 45-degree steps. This one went one higher, which is my sign that it's uneven. So I'll use erase, and you can actually use erase with a line as well. I'm just going to cut a line off the side. Let me paint these sides back. In terms of picking a color back up, you can actually hold down the Alt key and then click. And that's really helpful if you're just trying to find the same color you're already using. So I've got my lines. Now I'm going to use my box here to, still in the paint tool, going to paint back over those. Now in terms of getting our handle to protrude, there's a couple different ways we could go about doing that. What I'm going to try to do, let's see if this goes alright, is I'm going to click and drag from this side of the face over to the edge. There we go. You see how I did that? And that's just sort of laying it out. And drag from that corner over to that corner. Yeah. Alrighty. We'll try to do that same maneuver down at the bottom. And by the way, you can zoom. You can click middle, drag on the mouse wheel. Also down here we have perspective, free, and orthographic. So perspective, you'll see we can orbit the camera around. That's WASD to kind of walk the camera. Free, we'll instead do kind of a different type of control mechanism where it turns relative to our camera position rather than perspective. But those are really handy tools. Or orthographic can be used to view something without perspective. There's just many ways to look at it. So like I say, if you're already familiar with these terms from Blender, it's helpful. If you're not, that's fine too. You don't necessarily need those things. But if you're finding that it's hard for you to control, might experiment with some of these options and see if it's working better for you. And drag it over to the edge. And yeah. Alright. Let's fill in down there too. Okay, and we want to connect these two. So once I'm going to click and drag up here, all the way down to there. And notice too, when it first mouse is over here, it's dragging all the way to wherever it projects that point to. Obviously, it doesn't actually lay it down there until I release the mouse. There. And we probably, you know, if we look at this mug, my little reference, which it's okay for an artist to always use reference, and here there's no actual piece inside this handle. So I'm going to remove that with the erase tool. Erase. And let me see if I got it all. Yeah. All right. So we got our handle. Now, proportionally, is that kind of all right? Maybe. That's probably just fine. Hold this up and see. Yeah, I think it looks all right. Speaking of which, maybe let's also trim down that handle a little on each side. Looks a little uncomfortable. Just going to use the erase tool with the box option. And remember, we had it measured out, so I want to do this from both sides. And let's see. Yeah, the handle still looks all right. And actually, in proportion to that, the inside of this mug now looks all right. Ooh, let's fill it with something. Maybe, I don't know, coffee. That's a good color for brown for coffee. There we go. Actually, let's make sure we save this real quick. I'm going to click on save. I don't want to lose our changes. And here I'll just say coffee mug. Now it's going to show up over here under our saved files. And if you're, by the way, if you did want to use this in Blender or Unity, which we're not going to do today, we go down here to export, and that's where you can control the format, drop it out, and then Unity or something else can take it in as is. And we'll show it in a later video. I'll probably show how to use this tool for level design. You can kind of Minecraft your own levels for your games real quickly. So now, oh, I'm still on erase. Let me go to attach, and I got an overhead view here so I can click and drag, kind of filling up the mug. There we go. And let me fill in some, let's just take it up a little bit higher. You know, I wonder maybe we'll add a, I don't know, maybe we might experiment with kind of some little lines of cream or something in it. I'm not a real big coffee drinker anymore. Oh, I don't want to be on attach there. I probably want to be on paint. Paint will let me keep it flat. If we just kind of like show a couple little shimmery lines, it might help convey the liquidness of it. And yeah, maybe we could experiment with some little heat lines and do that. Let's change our height, which I'm not sure, but I'm betting that that's XYZ. Maybe it's a second one. Let's try that. 40. Nope. So let's take that one back to 20. And here it looks like the third argument is going to be our height. So 40. Oh, and here it actually kept us on the bottom. But again, if we wanted to slide it, we could slide the whole thing using this tool here. And based on which face we click and drag, we will slide the whole image on different axes. Now, in terms of achieving kind of a smoke, there's different ways you might try to achieve that. First off, we're going to want to try to build up a point up in space, right? We want it to kind of float above it. And so for that, we could try to stack them up. I could just click repeatedly, click, 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 click. I find that's not as convenient of a way unless I really want to measure up the height. we could do that, but I just want to show that that's one way we could get something to float. Another way is much like we did the handle. We can actually span between the two walls. And we can do that to kind of lay down a bridge. And what I'll first do is I'm going to paint something up the side to get a reference point for where I'm at. Then I'll click and drag across. Then I'm looking for about where it turns back into a single mark. It might be tricky to find, but it's not important. We can erase it. There we go. And now I will use this to erase big swaths of it, leaving just a little bit of piece up here that we can then build off of. See, we have a floating part now to build from. Now, what does smoke look like? This is part of what's fun about it, right? It's interpretive because, I don't know, smoke's not going to exist as little boxes. But let's kind of experiment and see what we get. If I have this go down a little bit, go up a little bit, I don't know, maybe that could be a smoke line. I got kind of a nice pattern going here. And perhaps. Now let's try using another one of these tools where we can use this here to box select. And this has two different ways to select. In the box option, I click and drag, and you'll see it selects an area just like I would with the attach or paint or removal tools. And that can box select a region. But another way we can also do it is by using rect, and that allows us to click and drag a rectangle. Almost like if we were in Photoshop, and you'll see it's catching everything within that box based on our perspective. And for the smoke, I'm going to go ahead and use that rect option, but occasionally box is a good suit too. And now from here, I'm going to try copying it. See here. Oh, there we go. I did paste it. I just didn't quite move it yet. So yeah. There we go. I just used Control X and Control V. And no, I'm sorry, Command C and Command V on Mac. And let's see. This might be too many of them. If it is, we'll remove some. Let me go back to my box tool. And then my selector. Select those. And again, this is where I'm using the mixture of the selection tool and the arrows to drag these around. Because all I'm really going for here is I don't want them to overly look like, I don't want it to look like it's all in a clump or all in one place. So I'm just kind of spreading them around. And again, what's nice about this is that we're forced into such an abstraction here that there's not really a right answer. And, you know, it's a little interpretive. One of the things I've always liked about shaping in voxels, whether inside playing Minecraft or in something like this, is that, you know, it's so easy and quick just to make a shape that you're not worried about if your curves are correct. You're not worried about, you know, if things aren't aligned correctly, as you might in a higher fidelity format. But yeah, okay, so maybe that'll do. Yeah. And I'll just, to deselect, I'm just going to click the box select, click somewhere else. And now we have a little coffee mug. And maybe we want to paint something on the side, just for fun. Again, we want to go back to our line tool, which we're not going to use all the tools today. But, yellow. I think C is for circle. Let's see if we make a smiley face on our mug. Which I'm gonna make a, let's make a left-handed mug. And so let's see how this pans out. Okay, pretty close to center. And it may just come out to be that we can't totally center this as we might want to. I wonder if I can do, nope. Alright, so let's see, how might we, I would like that to be a little more centered. A couple ways we can do this, right, is one, let's actually, this will be good practice for our dimensions. Make this one extra wide. You'll see it added the one on the other side, so let's drag it back. And now, I'm going to, I just want to show how quick and easy it is to fix. Hold down Alt and select. Alt and then clicked, and that got me back my base paint color. I'm still on attach. Oops. No big deal. We can always undo with the computer. I'll go back to box. There we go. And now I'm going to carve away this portion. I'm going to Alt click to grab the brown, go back to paint, still in the box. And you'll see I just made the mug one thicker. So now our yellow's balanced. Here we used to have two spaces on one side, one space on the other. And you'll see also our rim now is just one short. So let's also make our rim one taller because that's, you know, easy to do. Oh, still in the coffee color. Undo, Alt click to grab the color. And then click and drag to place down the edges of our mug. There we go. And so now we have a nice even balance around it. I'm going to click Alt, go back to Paint, fill in that spot. And let's just kind of make a little happy face. There we go. Now I'm actually looking up here to figure out if it's lined up. And this also might be something where a reference might not be a bad idea, but I bet I can get the gist of it. There we go. Yeah. Nice. Got a happy mug of coffee. You'll see it's actually, you can see the color coming through it, which if we don't like that, because they're voxels we're painting, it's always going to paint all the way through. We could cover that up if we are okay with having our mug a little bit thicker, which is not a bad thing. Let's go ahead and try that. Oops, still in the line mode. Box. Click and drag. Yeah, and so there we go. Now we can have a different color outside than inside, and of course let's make that match by going all the way around the mug. It's part of the fun of Magic of Voxels, how easy it is to make these kind of changes on the fly as you go. And you know, I've been using Blender for many years, but it would take me much longer to make something even vaguely along these lines in Blender without having just a massive poly count. And this is nice because, you know what, actually, now to look at it, I think that these coffee lines, the smoke lines are too low. I'm going to raise up all of them a little bit. So we'll go to Selector, in the box. And, ooh, it's actually going to be tricky with that one. Let me try using the rect selects. Let me make sure I can get all the smoke. There we go. Now with those selected, I'm going to drag those up a couple units, maybe down one. And I've also realized that looking at this, that now that I've raised the top, you'll see I have 1, 2, 3 gaps here and only 1 gap down there. I would like to make this more symmetrical, so let's pull that handle up a little bit. So I'm going to go to pull it up by 1 and by 2. And then I'll carve into it. 2 from below. And even though we're kind of going for boxy with the outside, maybe we want to make this handle a little bit more round. Let's just try that out and see how it looks. If I add a couple here into the corner of the top and the bottom, and then I erase, click, 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 click. Yeah, that already feels better, right? Looks and feels better. And our coffee level feels low now, so maybe let's fill it back up. Alt, click, and drag. Oops, still in erase, attach mode. At some point, I'm sure I'll get more comfortable and faster with the tool. I've really barely been experimenting with it so far, but having a lot of fun. I'm bringing up 2 levels. There we go. And I really did like, with the line and the paint, how the kind of cream looked in there. So let me redraw those. Or I think it's kind of shimmer lines, which you'll also see in all kinds of 2D pixel art too. And, you know, sometimes these things are, like I say, very subjective, but I like that you can experiment with them because it's so easy to undo, repaint over as many times as you need. And it's something that doesn't necessarily have sort of a trained eye to just look at it and say, you know what, I kind of actually prefer the way those specific diagonals look. So let's try sticking to those. There we go. Now if we wanted to, we could cut down that space. It looks like 40 was taller than we needed. And it's not hurting anything, but I just kind of like to stay a little closer to my boundary. Maybe 33. Yeah. There. Got my coffee mug. I want to make sure I click save. And at this point, if I want to, I could go to render. And you'll see it has sort of a nicer mode with some shadows, some lighting. It can do all kinds of other fancier things on the renderer. We're not going to mess with those things today. But it does allow you to make a nice picture in this way, right inside the tool, even without using some other posing program or without using an engine like Unity or something, which, like I said, in the future was going to show how we can use the same tool to build out level spaces or in-game models very rapidly in Unity. So thanks for tuning in today. I think it's been a lot of fun. I think it's been good that with art, I'm able to slow down a lot more than I am with code because I don't feel like I'm in a rush. But yeah, check out Magic of Voxel. It's free. It's for Mac and Windows. And I'll have a link for it down in the description. Have another video for y'all tomorrow. Bye for now.